Welcome to SibSpot.
Today's stories are more entitled parents, because why not? There's just so many. Story 1 is by the Waters. Entitled mom is very upset that the store owner spoke to her son about the board games he was throwing on the floor. This was a review left for one of my local gaming or tabletop stores. Stores have been open less than a year with over 100 5-star review raving about the owners and the store alike. Elizabeth, 2 out of 5 stars. We went in with our 3 kids to look for a new game to add to our collection. The selection they have is amazing and well curated with games and accessories for everyone. My apprehension for going back is, I don't feel like my kids were welcome there. I have a 3-year-old and he acts like one. While there, I had to talk to him quite a few times to keep his hands to himself. I tried to always keep my eyes on him and stay near him, but again, kids will be kids. After a bit, we were asked by a retailer to make sure our son, insert name of son here, which they called him by his name because we obviously had been telling him not to touch things, kept his hand off the merchandise. I understand the need to have merchandise that isn't broken or opened, and I made sure that didn't happen. He was touching things and even knocked some puzzles and games off their displays, but he didn't rip anything open. He didn't throw anything on the ground, and he didn't break anything. He was just a curious kid who was perhaps a bit bored. It's hard at the best of times to shop with children, but to be made to feel like you aren't doing enough or trying hard enough to look after your children sure doesn't make you feel welcomed or wanted. We went in planning on purchasing a board game, but left soon after the encounter because of how we were made to feel. My question is, do they have children? Have they raised a child themselves? It's not as easy as you might think to get kids to listen, especially when they are young. Response from the owner a month ago. Elizabeth, we put tremendous effort into making, enter store name here, a welcome haven for gamers of many ages and interests, and I'm sorry we fell short of that mark for you during the about 50 minutes you and your family spent here. I don't think this is the proper forum, or to anyone's benefit, to detail why I felt the need to politely address with you the behaviors that were exhibited at the store. I will just point readers to our other reviews and encourage them and their families to visit and decide for themselves. Respectfully, owner of store. I agree with the owner that Elizabeth's review says more about her than it does about the store owner. My son and I didn't feel welcome because the employees had an issue with him wrecking displays. Is she serious? This is why these stories are actually so great. What's obvious to some people is not obvious to others. Most people see their kid doing bad things and don't say, kids will be kids. They take them out of the store and make sure their child knows they're not happy. And often, that in itself is enough to make them rethink their bad behavior next time. Like, don't just say kids will be kids. Take your kid out of there. That's what all the parents that are looking at you are thinking. They teach them to behave and not destroy things that employees spent time setting up. Not this woman. She thinks that since her child is hard to control, he should just be allowed to be destructive. Ugh. She definitely gets the entitled parent stamp of disapproval. Then her review hurts this person's business. Even if people don't read her absurd review, it brings the review average down, all because she was 100% in the wrong and had to downplay her brat child's behavior. Story 2 is by Artistic Rip 8184. Entitled mother yells at her 4-month-old grandchild. So my mom is the most entitled, self-absorbed, selfish person I know. She grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth and her daddy paid for everything, so she has no idea how to adult, especially now at 72 years old. I have strived every day not to be like this woman. Truthfully, my mom didn't do much raising of me until I was about 15 years old. Other family members did prior to that. That being said, I gave birth to my daughter, Megan, in December of 2022, and she is the love of my life and the apple of my eye. My mom loves her for as much as she can genuinely love anyone or anything, and seems to think they're going to be best friends. Her behavior, however, has far from reflected that. Every time my kiddo cries in the background while we're on the phone, my mom's first reaction is, "What's wrong with her?" Each time, I calmly say that she's a baby and babies cry. Then her next response is, "Well, you never cried," which I highly doubt. Over the phone, my mom has said things like, "I'm surprised you haven't looked at her and told her to stop. She needs to be quiet. I'm not in the mood to deal with her crying today. You're going to have to call me back. I can't listen to her." Nice, right? I have called her out on these kinds of statements before, saying that it is unacceptable for her to say those things and to speak to my child that way. But she's the queen, so no one tells her what to do. She moved to our area recently, and my daughter started crying while we were driving down the road. Not even full-fledged, lung-emptying screaming, just medium-level crying. After a couple minutes, my mom leans around the passenger's seat and shouts, "Megan, stop!" And that's when I lost it. I tore into her and told her she will not scream at my child because she is my child and not her child, and that she was going to sit there and listen to her because that's what I have to do every day. I also told her if she has a problem with the noises my child makes, then she won't be welcome at our home. I yelled at her so severely that she cowered in her seat. Then I said very loudly and sarcastically, "It's okay, Megan. Grammy doesn't know what she's saying because she has no idea what it's like to raise a child." The rest of the car ride was pretty quiet, and it only solidified my decision to never let my daughter alone with her. I've never raised a baby myself. I know I actually can't stand crying babies either, but I do know that if you take a baby to a hospital, there's a checklist for excessive crying, and it might be a good idea to make sure she doesn't have something wrong with her medically. If she's not actually crying too much, then her mom needs to back off. Some babies cry, some don't cry a lot. Her daughter, the mother of the baby, may have barely cried when she was an infant, but that doesn't mean the current baby will do the same. My mom had 3 children, and I was quiet until my other brother of the same age started crying, and then I'd start screeching, I've been told. And my older brother was quiet most of the time. We're like cats when we're little. We all have our little personalities, and some are more talkative or mouthy than others. Story 3 is by former Acanthaceae. Today I learned that Acanthaceae is a plant family, and I also learned how to say the word. Hopefully the websites I learned it from are correct. Some of them actually have an I sound at the end instead of E. My mom is giving me the silent treatment because I didn't do her a favor. Hi, it's my first time posting here. My mother is 65 years old and I'm in my mid-30s. Let me start by saying that my parents have a really bad marriage and they hate each other. It's been like this since I was little. They live very close to me and my mom stopped driving a few years ago because of health problems. However, she's not handicapped and she can walk, she just doesn't drive. My mom has been relying a lot on my dad to drive her places. She doesn't like buses. Sometimes she would ask me to drive her and I didn't mind at first, but now I'm starting to realize that she has become lazy and entitled. For example, even if she needs to go somewhere that's walking distance from the house, she still wants a ride. She's too special to walk or take a bus, or she'll complain that Uber is too expensive. Lately, I've been driving her a lot because she complains that my dad and her are not on speaking terms since they fight every day. So I feel like now I'm taking the role of my dad with my mom since they both can't get along and act like adults. Since my dad won't drive her, now it's my responsibility to do it. On Saturday, my mom asked if I could buy some things from the grocery store for her, but I had enough of her depending on me. I told her to ask my dad, and that it was not my problem if she had marital problems with him. I also told her that she was becoming too dependent on both of us for transportation, and it was not good. She just said okay and has been giving me the silent treatment ever since that day. Was I bad for creating boundaries and standing up for myself? Not only my mom expects to be driven everywhere, but she uses me as her emotional tampon every day to tell me how miserable she is in her marriage. I'm just tired. I'm not entirely sure this one belongs in entitled parents. It's super mild, if anything. However, OP, you need to put your foot down and do your thing and set boundaries. Otherwise, some may take advantage of you. They often don't see it as such, but they need to be aware. They're completely capable adults and they can figure it out. Story 4 is by Significant Win 6272. Most entitled parents / people I have ever seen. Let me give the background into this flight. I was sitting in the economy for 1.5 hours at 11 a.m. There was a family, mom, dad, young kid, in front of my wife and I. First event. The mom and young kid immediately and with force reclined their seats into us. The mom forced the kid to recline their seat, even though the kid was 4 years old at most and was not even using the recline. The mom gave me nasty looks because when she forcefully reclined her seat, it slammed into my knees and probably hurt her back. We did not say or do anything and just kept to ourselves. Second event. The kid was kicking the guy's seat in front repeatedly. Not just innocent kicking, but pounding on the seat. Third event, the kid was watching a movie with no headphones on the flight. The kid continued to do this until a flight attendant noticed and told them that they needed headphones. The mom was angry at the flight attendant. Fourth event, the mom was complaining that she was cold or something, so the dad stood up and turned off the air that the people in front of them were using. He did not ask them. I thought this was very rude. Fifth event. The kid / mom started to reach back and close our window shade. It was daytime and no sun was directly shining in. Most people had their window shades open. We reopened it about 3 times in a row because we had paid for a window seat and wanted to look out the window as we were flying over somewhere new with cool landscape. After the 4th time, the mom turned to us and got mad at us for keeping it open, stating that her kid needed to sleep. We told her it was our window and would be keeping it open. We told her she could unrecline her kid's seat and the window would no longer be in her eyes and the seat would block it. She did not do this and was very angry with us. Note, the kid fell asleep anyway after the flight attendant made everyone open their windows for landing 2. You gotta love kids on flights that aren't parented well. Man, it can really make an otherwise pleasant flight a really miserable time. That's it for our stories for today. If you enjoyed this content, please click like or subscribe. It costs nothing and it helps other people discover the channel and listen in. As always, until we meet again, have a delightful day.